Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Intentional Intern podcast. I am so excited for today's episode because it is what I love and what I work in, which is HR. But I'm with another fellow HR guru, John, and I'm going to give it to him to introduce himself before I talk too much about him.
Oh yeah, thank you so much, Amaya. Thank you for having me. So, John Boris, happy to be a part of Nestle's HR development program, class of 2025. Recent grad from Florida International University, studied public relations, minor in project management. So I support technical and production. So think engineering, technical applications group, product development specialist. So everything from packaging to making sure your mac and cheese doesn't explode in the microwave. So love my team, love what I got to do as an HR business partner. And then next rotation, next year, I'll be supporting our professional solutions factory. So think Panera mac and cheese. If you've ever been on a cruise or been to Olive Gardens or anything under the Darden umbrella, you likely had a Nestle product. So excited to get into it.
That was fire. Okay. Protecting my mac and cheese. I love it.
Yes. All the things, whether it's Stouffer's or Panera, got to make sure it's, nice and safe.
You know what? Period. Because I just had Panera today. Keep me safe, then. Well, let's get into it. Let's get into just your background in general. So let's go back to your college days. Talk about how did you end up picking like what you were going to study back then?
Ooh, I love this question. So I already knew from high school, I just really loved just representing different brands. And I was in student government at the time. And funny enough, shout out to Mrs. Peliquin. She literally told me you would do amazing in a career in like public relations. I always saw myself wanting to be a PR specialist. Fast forward, went to FIU, was joining different organizations on campus. COVID happened, took a little break from school, and then realized I don't think this PR thing is for me. Do I want to be a social media baddie? I was like, I could see it. Maybe it's on the back burner for now. And funny enough, I joined my professional business fraternity and throughout that process, and I want to say like fall 2021, which is crazy that so many years ago now, just really fell in love with people. Always knew I wanted to help others. And that's how I kind of fell into HR.
You know what? PR baddie to HR baddie pipeline. I see it.
Yes, there's so much overlap, which people wouldn't expect, but especially when it comes to in communications and interacting with employees, it's definitely been helpful. Even though I'll be honest, I never really appreciated it much at the time, but definitely as I've starting to get started in my early career, it's definitely been helpful.
Yeah, I have gotten that so much, even in just being in HR, of so many people saying, "Oh, I thought you were in PR or marketing," and I'm like, I could never. Actually, sorry.
They'll literally love what they do, admire from afar though. They go
Mm,
where I'm meant to be.
yeah, support from a distance. I totally understand, and I think it's so interesting. Also, you talking about just the project management piece. I thoroughly enjoy project management, and getting to see how much you get to do that in HR is surreal because I think people don't think about that a lot too. And I think we think about project management also in kind of a very broad sense of kind of managing something that's not like we're not thinking about projects even down to, oh, like the essay that you're doing is a project. Oh, this program that you're managing, that is what we're just thinking about as maybe like projects in a broader sense. But HR really gives like project management this little bit of spice to it because it's super dynamic. And sometimes people management is part of that project management and what you're thinking about, but on a completely different scale because instead of it just affecting, let's say, like a typical department in the project that you're doing, you're usually affecting not only one department, but multiple pieces of the workforce within that department with the projects that you're working on.
And I love that you share that. To your point, it's funny. I always told myself if I wasn't doing a career in the people space, the only other thing that I was like, oh, I'd be interested in is a career in project management. Funny enough, so much intersection between HR and project management. And I'll never forget the summer before I graduated, I took a project management class at FIU, and literally, professor was amazing. We had different industry professionals, more on like IT project management. And I would always ask, oh, what would you say is like a top skill set to kind of get into this field? And it's always people, interacting with
Mm.
people. managing the relationships of people, getting teams to work cross-functionally together. And what is all of that? HR.
Clark it. Exactly. Like, see, you understand. And I think something that also kind of gets a little bit has an overlap. It gets a little bit dicey for sure when it comes to project management also when we're talking about HR or in the people space is most importantly also managing like shifting deadlines when it comes to what that means for people involved. So, whether it's something that you've already communicated out to the workforce, if it's something that's more internal, that's kind of like imperative to some work that you have later down the line, depending on your company's priorities. It's like you're not having to just like, okay, let's just adjust our timeline. It's just affecting our team. Sometimes you're having to be like, hey, people leaders, how are you? Or people leaders coming to you and be like, hey, team, so I have some news. And then you're like, oh no. But you're figuring it out. You have to figure it out, of course.
Yeah, no, it's definitely agreed. And honestly, just leveraging that organizational communications classes, it's so funny as I'm going through writing essays and looking at these different theories. It's so important and honestly shocking, kind of just like entering this like early career space, how valued, I mean, even from an employer standpoint, communication, written, oral, just even, nonverbal communication goes such a long way. So it's definitely given me a lot of pride in like going down this path. I always kind of felt like I wish I would have had maybe more traditional education in the like HR space or businessy space. But to that point, I mean, doing project management as a minor, and then I chose a business concentration. It's definitely served me well. So it's yeah, need more of that communication when it comes to people.
Yeah, I think also coming from a similar standpoint of view as someone who's also kind of worked in employee communications for a bit, and then also with my MBA in human resource management, having some of the classes that I took, I also had to think about like how people would receive a message way more than the average person would. And thinking about even what words are we choosing because does this allude to is there going to be some type of change in the company? Is there something that we need to look out to? Like when it's specifically an HR driven communication versus if it's coming from marketing or IT or whatever, people tend to read in between the lines a lot more when it's coming from HR because it's like, okay, like, what are they really talking about? And you have to think about that so much of even one word could make people think positively or negatively. And no matter what, any communication from HR or anything said from HR is going to be directly tied to employee sentiment somehow. And so, luckily you have some HR people on the ground that are, usually in employee engagement or maybe over like the inclusion and belonging sector that people may be a little bit more open to talking to versus maybe other members. So thinking about like, for example, HRBPs and talking to them about, hey, I don't know how this is making me feel. Or, oh, I'm super excited about this thing coming out. So it's definitely always a temperature check when it comes to how people respond to communications or even in like the length of the communication. If you're trying to get surveys done or getting people to do performance reviews, if it's too long, they, you
You miss
know.
yeah. Very high level always. If you said more than 3 words, you've said too much.
Like it's so interesting. And it's like these are also people that are like every single part of the board, whether you're early career, director, C-suite, everybody has the same common stance of if it was like a long text message, I ain't reading all that.
Yeah, though they should.
Though they should. Yes. It's like we try to make it as short as we can, like when we can, but the information is also super, super important. And I think that kind of leads me to just you have had a very extensive HR career, even before just now being in this role that you are within the development program. But just thinking about all of your internships, can you like walk me through what were some of your highlights? What did you enjoy? What did your internships teach you before you got to this point?
Ooh, I love this. And this kind of gets into my intrusive HR thoughts. So definitely I'm excited to share. So starting out with even before my internship experience, I think just getting into HR in general. So one of the things, of course, being born and raised in Miami, Florida, of course, the hospitality and travel and tourism is very big. Of course, with cruise lines and hotels. So I really started my entryway into HR in a part-time HR role. I'll never forget I started at the Riverside Hotel. I was a HR administrator, and it was the only hotel on Las Vegas Boulevard. And from there, I really took that experience as more of, I would say, maybe lower level HR BP space. You're doing full range of HR activities. And from there, it gave me that opportunity to kind of leverage that experience to even start. So the one thing I would always tell people is whether if you're in early career, if you're in college and you're looking, for a foot in the door, maybe you have to try a back door. I honestly didn't really start kind of going into internships right away. I still had to the whole chicken or the egg and really figure out, okay, how can I get that experience, even though I'm very young and it's kind of hard to get that experience. So just kind of giving that context and that background. So from there, leverage working at public supermarkets and for their corporate internship experience. I started out in talent acquisition, so that'll always be my home and have a special place in my heart. And throughout that experience, what I really loved with Publix is that it taught you business strategy. And I think that is so important as such a foundational internship. And I think that's what got me to really start thinking from a business line. At the end of the day, we're a resource to humans, really just being able to have that opportunity to understand, okay, what are we doing as HR to really support our leaders, and how are we kind of tying our strategy with the overall company mission. So I always credit Publix for just kind of giving me that more business lens, even before that whole wanting to be like more established as an HR professional. And then, have a real conversation with myself. What am I good at? What areas of opportunity do I have? So I knew, okay, when it came to the PR and the communications, I knew how to represent myself. I always got critiqued on my emails and given positive feedback. And I knew when it came to more of those soft skills, I was there, but I had some areas of opportunity when it came to more data analytics. And at the time, I want to say, what's that, 2022, which was really weird to say, but I had that check in with my manager and I was like, okay, I want to get more comfortable with being uncomfortable. And she put me in touch with some data scientists within the company, and I was able to kind of get their perspective on how can I, as a aspiring HR professional, really get more comfortable with people analytics and understanding data. And I recommended compensation. I think I was like, okay, I'm very bubbly. I don't know how I feel about VLOOKUP, Microsoft Excel, and all those good things. But I knew at the end of the day, data rules the day. So I really challenged myself, and I knew that my next internship opportunity had to be something a little bit different. And that's kind of really what led me to going to DHL and doing a compensation analyst internship. Yes, it was very different. Lots of data, large reports, really kind of understanding merit and bonus increase and kind of getting a whole different side of HR, just kind of coming from talent acquisition. But I do credit that experience with me just being able to get a challenge. I'll never even forget. Even throughout my interview process, again, I stood out as a candidate that was very polished, very professional, but had some areas to grow when it came to pulling a report and getting it cleaned up in a timely manner. And I always credit my manager for not only showing me those more technical capabilities and that whole side of compensation and benefits of HR, but understanding how to do it manually before you can start to do all the fancy features and start to get into the storytelling aspect. And then from there, I knew, okay, I had what I felt like were like infinity stones. I was like, okay, I have talent acquisition, I can recruit, I can represent a company. Now I can pull your reports, I can work with leaders to make sure that we can tell the story and make sure that people are paid correctly. So how do I start to do a little bit of everything and starting to flex those different muscles? And that's what really kind of led me to Amazon. So I knew that I really enjoy doing a little bit of everything. And to that point earlier, project management, just how do we, take a strategic initiative for the company and think about it at scale. So I joined Amazon as an HR generalist intern in summer of 2023. And that was such a good experience because it taught me a lot of ambiguity. I think when it comes to Amazon and just the large organization that it was, I was challenged throughout my 12-week experience to just one, get relocated to a new area. So it's the first time a company saying, "Hey, we like you. We want you to come to Tennessee." And I was like, "Oh, okay, this is different." But I'm up for the challenge and really working there. Had a lot of opportunities to kind of work on more project management and how do you take a project from inception and really drive it to completion. So I was able to kind of leverage understanding the business strategy from public. So I know, okay, I need to be a student of the business. How do I understand those strategic priorities? Who are the stakeholders that are involved? And then really being able to kind of take that communications, that public background. Okay, how do I build a relationship with people? How do I get their buy-in? How do I make the conversation flow and start to dig deeper and really just to that point, like, get into those like underlying issues. It was tough. Not gonna lie, I had my crash outs. I had my my moments where it was not easy, but I do credit Amazon's approach too. And this is my first time not necessarily even having a presentation to do. So, funny enough, Amazon prides itself on not doing presentations. They believe in what's called white papers. So, think of your average college 10-page paper, now multiplied by 10, and then multiplied by 20 for the data points. And that was what was expected as your final product to your senior leaders. So definitely taking a project, and even to that point, what I thought was interesting was that, of course, they took the opportunity to kind of look at like my background in public relations and decided, okay, let's give you the most ambiguous project that kind of ties in your degree program and your design skills, and then give you this project and see how you can transform it to an HR perspective for employees where English isn't their first language and have
Mm.
fun. So it, pushed me to my limits, but I definitely had the support and all of the opportunities to be able to kind of leverage what I learned. And what I will tell anybody is that, yeah, if I can do it, you can do it too. And I was able to get through that. And then I kind of knew, kind of coming towards the end of my academic experience, I started to be intentional about what I wanted to do next. So I knew that I always wanted to do a development program. So I kind of targeted companies that specifically had internships that had backdoors to development programs. So I remember at one point while I was finishing up school, I did another part-time HR coordinator role at a hospitality company. And I knew that while we love a stable paycheck, especially finishing up school, that I had to just prepare myself to get uncomfortable again. So joined Boeing. I was doing global talent acquisition. And it was definitely a different experience, just kind of like learning the aerospace industry. So, new industry, new players, and then kind of thinking about recruitment, but thinking about it overseas. I'll never forget my first task from my manager was, "Hey, John, we need a recruiter in Germany for the team. Tag your id, have a short list for me next week." I was like, "Oh, okay." So Google Translate and Indeed, so I can read the resumes to be able to source the talent and hope that the phone call is in English. So lots of challenges there, but it definitely again pushed me out my comfort zone to really kind of understand, hey, that you're gonna be put in, special situations, and sometimes you have to just push through. So kind of leveraging that ambiguity that I learned from Amazon. Again, learning business strategy when it came to publics, and then getting comfortable with the technical side. Because I also had more of an onboarding specialist hat in my internship where I'm processing background checks and drug screenings across the country. And so at the culmination of that, I kind of just reflected and I knew, okay, HR is exactly what I want to do. And while I've had the opportunity and I feel blessed to have done so many different things and wear many different hats, then I knew that I still had so much to learn. I felt like the development program was the best fit for me because I kind of gave myself a development program in HR. And then I just kind of took a reflection as far as industries. And it's funny, I kind of feel like I went right back to square one. Love consumer goods, love the culture. And so when Nestle fell on my lap, I knew that it was the company for me.
I feel like you should give an award for everything you just said.
Oh, thank you.
'Cause
Yeah,
I'm looking like, oh, like, and I feel you in so many different areas of like challenging yourself to get uncomfortable because I think a lot of people just think of HR as hiring and firing. And I'm like, it ain't even, some of y'all, like, we wish that was all it was sometimes, but that's not what it is at all.
agreed.
And just putting yourself in those spaces too of like the compensation piece and people analytics, like if there's one thing that I've learned throughout my entire time in HR, which it's super funny that you started in talent acquisition. I started in talent acquisition as well. If there's one thing that I've learned is that employee data drives everything. Your people data drives everything. And finding good people data that is like where you can just start is something key and crucial. Cleaning them sheets is always going to be like number one thing. And just connecting the dots in other places. Like, I don't think I knew I was an adult when I saw an Excel sheet, like shortcut, like little mat that I could buy. And I was like, I need this in my life. Like, that was the most exciting thing to me at the time. And I'm like, girl, we're excited over an Excel sheet right now. Listen to yourself, like Excel shortcuts on a mat. But knowing how important it is, especially of like that is something that is a lesson that you just continue to learn as you're working through data in Excel, especially when it's qualitative and quantitative data with people. Like, my background is more qualitative data. So whenever I'm touching quantitative data, I'm like, oh, okay, you're back. Let's move through it. I totally understand. And I think it's also so valid that you said, at Amazon, I did have my fair share of crash outs. Well, yes, you're human too. Like, it happens. Like, HR is not immune to dealing with other people just because that is the profession. But being able to carry those, like you said, professionally and polished and dealing with them while also still getting your work done is so key. Like, I completely understand, even in doing projects. I think especially like in my MBA program, when you talked about the white paper stuff, and man, there are still some things that were still long papers. Like, I think my talent acquisition and development class, we had to develop a talent strategy for the FAA for air traffic controllers. And that was still long because we went through almost like the entire process, and it was written down on paper, from scoreboards to job descriptions to, if these were our candidates, how would we categorize them, down to the offer, et cetera, even down to doing some of the math that a lot of people don't know is involved in talent acquisition, even then, for just figuring how much talent
Cheers.
you need. It's You learn so much. And I felt the same way in my compensation and benefits class, of just down to the theory with that of how that stuff works. I was just like, there's just so much. You will always find a way in HR to be uncomfortable. But when you get comfortable with that and you settle with the fact that you can get comfortable with that, that's when you start to thrive, instead of just saying like, I don't know, but saying, I don't know, but I'm gonna figure it out.
Yes, and that is something I even have to remind myself as I go through this development program. While whether in business or in life you will face defeat, you cannot allow yourself to be defeated. And I think one of the biggest things that I had to take a step back and really reflect in my time so far with Nuts is that we're in a development program for a reason. It's meant to be an accelerator. We're getting what typically takes time to really climb up the HR ladder to do, strategic HR work, are what people spend, a big chunk of their career kind of building that foundation to. And we're being stretched for the next 2 years. And
Mhm.
sometimes I had to, as it's if you make one hiccup or a mistake, your career is not over. I think it's the early career Gen Z in us that we want everything to be perfect. But honestly, and with any company, if that company really wants to see you win, they're going to empower you to make mistakes, because how are you supposed to learn otherwise?
Yeah. I know that's one of like the first things, especially like what you said and echoing that sentiment of you want everything to be perfect as someone who is a deeply recovering perfectionist. I mean, I understand.
Recovery.
I'm I'm being so real, deeply recovering because it's just something about like when you're getting uncomfortable with things that are completely new to you and you have no leg to stand on, you're basically just kind of floating for a while. And that can feel a bit uncomfortable because you're like, whoa, what am I supposed to grab onto? What am I supposed to anchor to? And the answer is nothing until you learn enough to where you kind of are building your own anchor and you're like, oh, okay, I can kind of get that. But like you said, reminding yourself and just having those moments with yourself of like, this is a development program. I'm supposed to learn. I had someone talk to me like the other day about like an internship that they were starting and they were like, what do I do? Like, what if I mess up? I don't know. Like if I'll do well, like I already have imposter syndrome. I said, you're going into a program where you're supposed to learn. How are you ragging on yourself for not knowing everything when the whole point of the program is to learn, is to grow. They are not expecting you to know anything. You're going into this to gain experience. So how are you ragging on yourself for having no experience right now?
That part.
And you just got to frame it that way sometimes because sometimes we can be so hard and I'm like, how are you mad at yourself for going after an opportunity that's going to help you grow?
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll get me to lock in quickly.
And even just understanding too that sometimes the success is just even the key learnings that you take away from an experience. And I know even one of the biggest pieces of feedback, I'm always requesting feedback all the time at Nestle, is that they're like, John, you can't have been here for 5 months and solve all of the complex HR issues within this global company. That we have executives that are working through this. So it is okay if you come in and your biggest takeaway is that you're able to process intake forms, you're able to support employees when it comes to benefits and guiding them into resources that'll be applicable for their concerns. That in itself, you're doing what you need to do. And sometimes I have to take a step back and kind of remind myself that I can't always do my big one. As much as I love doing my big one, that sometimes doing your big one can mean, hey, I'm following my onboarding plan and I'm confident in processing transactions with little to no supervision, and there's power in that.
Preach. There are definitely times where I'll have to step back and be like, hey, I've been here X amount of months. Like I've probably done that so many times where I'm like, I've been here X amount of months. I've accomplished this, this, and this. Hey, that's pretty good for some like that's pretty good. I've done exactly what my manager has expected, if not a little bit more than I thought that I would get to do. Have I taken time to stop and smell the flowers instead of thinking about what kind I'm gonna grow next?
Yep. Never all victorious. It's it's crazy. I think too, just one thing that I love, just being around a community of overachievers, and with our generation, I love that we're always striving for excellence and striving to be the best. And sometimes you can be in the right place at the right time, and that is your success, and that is your power. I'm looking at 2026, trying to set all of these goals. My program literally is what's next for me, but I'm still looking to do different side quests. And sometimes, the journey is the side quest at the same time. So definitely I've resonate with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think something else as you were just going through your extensive HR background here, that came to me also is just how you were intentional about knowing what your next step was, even though internships are fantastic, but also thinking about what's next and thinking about, okay, I'm kind of working part time, I'm doing this, I'm thinking about what's next for me and thinking about development programs versus just full time, which is something like development programs, I think to me should be the interim step before full time career sometimes. Like, I wish that was more normalized. I would love to learn a little bit more about just your process in the program. What are some things that you feel like people should know if they were going into applying for a development program or interested in a development program in HR?
Ooh, I love this question. So I would definitely say first, before even really kind of thinking about development program, what makes you happy? What makes you wake up in the morning and your heart truly falls in love? Whether it's a service, a product, I think that was really the deciding factor when it came for me and kind of knowing which development program to go with. I knew that I really wanted to have an affinity with the company that I just like selected. So I knew, okay, I like consumer goods. I'm a big bag. I like pizza. I like cookies. Like, I just think it's fun. And so I knew, I wanted to choose passion and choose the best of both worlds. And then also kind of deciding, what's gonna work best for you because the change in the development program could be a lot. Are you open to relocating? If you're going, open to relocating, is your development program, is your company going to support that relocation process? Some development programs may offer that, some programs may not offer that. So really just being able to kind of take a step back and just assessing where you are at that, finish line, you're about to cross the stage and just kind of do that check in with yourself. Okay, what, do I want in this next chapter of my life and what are some of my non-negotiables? I think when you start to kind of narrow that down, then you can start to be intentional about your application process. So do you want to, be in the more business partnering space? If so, then you're going to want to look into development programs in HR where the target is to develop you into an HR business partner. Do you want to go into a center of excellence in talent acquisition for you? Do you want to be in employee relations? There are development programs that are more geared to rotations and a little bit of everything, but we'll make sure that you start to silo into a center of excellence. So even within development program, that's something I always thought was really interesting too. And then also just making sure that you're kind of aligned with the industry. So kind of, okay, if I want to, do HR more in the financial space, okay, do I want to be more of an HR analyst? Do I want to align more with, okay, the HR in talent acquisition? Because even within talent acquisition, to your point earlier, there's a whole technical side of talent acquisition. Do you want to go into, in industry and roles that are kind of aligned more to that? So those are some of the things that I for sure kind of looked at like call outs and do a side by side. Take screenshots of LinkedIn, put it in your notes, save things, set up different alerts, and definitely just be intentional with those facets of HR that you want to look into and look at the placement for the program.
Okay, clock it. Period. Yeah. I mean, there are so many pieces that I think a lot of people don't know when it comes to HR, of just all of the great advice that you shared. One, and just making sure, okay, before we even get into all the nitty gritty, does this make you happy though? Okay, let's start there. Um, because I think a lot about HR is definitely misconstrued, and being a people person is not enough to survive in the field. It's not. It definitely keeps you going and your passion, but there has to be something like, how do you want to help people? Like, you just have to figure out, like, define that and what that looks like and break it down into what is specifically how you would help people versus keeping it broad. Otherwise, just keeping it broad is not going to be enough for even helping you to try and develop. And so, like you said, from there, when you figure out, okay, this makes me happy, of like the area of HR feels like it can make me happy and what I can accomplish here, then let's start thinking about, what facet are we talking about here, and what you may want to learn, whether that's starting out as a generalist or looking at programs that are more technically charged, maybe people in like HRIS, being a people systems analyst, looking at HR project managers, or thinking about the financial aspect of it. Do you want to go into compensation? Do you want to be a compensation analyst? Do you want to go more into payroll? Do you want to think about benefits and how even benefits and compensation or payroll may go together real bad? Like, those things. Or are you more on the holistic side of it? where it's a mix of everything from business to people to culture. So we're starting to get into learning and development. We're looking at employee engagement. We're looking at DEIB. We're looking at people and culture roles, where it's like you're getting into now, okay, you're under one umbrella. So you all the other rain is gone away of what you thought you were looking into, and now we're a little bit more aligned into, now we know what we can really look for of development programs that are kind of geared mostly towards this. But I would still be happy learning some of these other areas in between. So I think that is really, really great advice.
Yeah.
I mean, he just wrapped it in a bow for y'all. I just yapped a little bit to add.
No, I appreciate that.
I mean, there is just so much that I feel like we always probably think about as early career HR. And, we're all still in this like, some days we swim in, other days we're like, help, a little drown, just a tiny
Yeah,
drown,
let's do this quick. So, about
just
that.
a little bit. And so if you were to start back, like in just, hey, if someone who was thinking about HR and it would in that pace be their early career, what is some advice that you would just give them blanket going into thinking about HR as an early career professional?
Ooh, okay. This is a tough one. I don't think I've ever had to kind of think back. I would probably say, and I think that it's very a common theme that I've kind of seen throughout my time. I think that sometimes maybe our universities, and I can only speak to kind of some of the experiences that I've had, that you're not always kind of given a realistic outlook of what success looks like. And I think from an HR space and even just a business perspective in general, being a people leader or achieving a people leader title does not equate to success. I think that if there was something that I would have kind of reminded myself is that you're exactly where you need to be, wherever you start out in your HR journey. I think sometimes you're thinking of wanting to do more of those investigations or doing those more higher level strategic HR projects, but you need to understand the foundation. And I even kind of think back to my time being an HR coordinator, being an HR administrator, learning the importance of an employee file. I remember doing an employee file, kind of understanding those bits and pieces. And after a while, you get a little tired of it. There's some more transactional tasks and foundational tasks in human resources, but that is really what sets you up for success. So I think if you're going to, or if I had to do it all over again, I think I would really continue to find a company that is really intentional about making sure that you understand the basics. Do you know where the, confidential health forms for an employee need to go into a file? Do you know how you're supposed to organize a file? Do you know how to run an audit on all of your employee files, making sure your I-9s are in compliance and really up to date? So I definitely would say that piece of it, and then also kind of being able to kind of enjoy the journey no matter how difficult it can be. I think something that I always kind of think back to myself, especially around that Amazon period, is that while it's great, I think with our generation just wanting to always kind of look for the next big thing, it's really important to kind of take a step back and say, hey, this is where I wish I would have been X, Y, Z years ago, and really just kind of understanding that, hey, your time will come. So just making sure, hey, like, take a step back, enjoy where you're at, because once you get to those higher roles in HR where you're really being stretched and needing to kind of leverage, you're going to appreciate all the different things that may have been a little bit more manual or more administrative in nature. Those are going to be those building blocks so that when you get that seat at the table, you're able to really speak on the depth of experience. So
Mic drop.
thank you, thank you. That was really haven't been asked that before, but I appreciate that.
Welcome to my podcast. I think like I would echo everything that you said for sure. but I think like you break it down in a way where people aren't having to guess what they need to do. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of early career are talking about right now, where it's like, okay, people are saying, blanket statements where it's like, oh, you just need to do this. And it's like, okay, well, how do I do that? Like, what? Like, we need to break it down a little bit more. Um, and I think people are taking that as, I don't want to ask, okay, can you break it down a little bit more in the case of like, I don't want to seem like I'm not incompetent or, that I'm not competent enough to do this. But it really, no, is a matter of, hey, ask the question. Ask the question. No one is going to dock you for asking something, because imagine if you just acted on it without knowing what you were doing. And then that causes a whole bunch of other fires down the line. But even down to some of the basics that people wouldn't think of, yeah, go through and tell your HR intern, what is an employee file? Break it down. Why is it important? Not just from, oh, we keep the storage to make sure that we have everything, but no, like from a compliance perspective, from a legality perspective, even how long do we keep employee files that are active versus inactive? What does that mean if all of these different specific forms? Where do we need to house this? Okay, now we're venturing into, here's our bigger stuff of, here's our file management system. This is everything that we have going on. And then breaking it down from, okay, so now when we think about how do different HR professionals interact with these files? Okay, so then we have our team over here who does this with the files. We have our team over here who may use this for the files for certain reasons, if it's for investigations or XYZ. Thinking about, oh, I need to update this for payroll, making sure that this is important, that this matches the offer letter that recruiting gave them. It's like all these little dots of just where it's important to everybody, where it's like, I understand why this is important now. Have a little employment lawyer come over on your company, be like, hey, so I'm here to talk to you about legally why we need this from that compliance perspective there too. So even just those small things of the building blocks that a lot of people are usually thrown into when it comes to HR, because you will rarely hear anybody say, "Oh yeah, I studied HR and I was prepared for this." And I'm talking about
Yeah.
HR out HR out the gate. I'm talking about bachelors knew from the jump that they wanted to be in HR. That's rarely going to happen. You're going to hear people say, "Oh yeah, I just fell into it." And that's real.
The famous
That's what
word.
most of it is. That is literally what most of it is. And so you talking about, hey, I've been thrown into it. I learned from all these places. These are really like, when I mean basic foundations, we're starting from that micro level and then we're building on that before you even think about certifications and taking tests. Things that sometimes they don't teach in school either. I can't think of a time where someone explicitly sat me down and thought in my class, hey, let's talk about employee files. Man, no, that's something that's something I had to learn. So you are dropping gems, and you see his excellence. You see the HR baddie coming out.
No, thank you. That's I think even for myself, more than anything, the title will come. You will be able to have that seat at the table and you will be that HR leader at that time in your career. But definitely, I think at this point or at that early career stage, chase the experience and chase the skill set. Be able to confidently say, I can, review internal equity and make a compensation proposal that ensures that people are being paid correctly for their years of experience and their qualifications, being able to feel comfortable representing a company and recruit early career talent, being able to have difficult conversations and knowing how to coach leaders. I think before anything, before I'm ready to get to that happy place in my career where I can have an intern and I can give back intentionally and grow that person, I need to be able to hit those buckets. And that's the kind of way that I've kind of looked at things at this part of my career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Looking at it from a season perspective of like, this is the season that I'm in versus the forecasting. I knew probably after my second or third internship in HR where I had met with our CHRO or our top HR leader at the time. And when people would ask me, oh, do you think you want to be an HR leader? Like, I was like, I can't tell you yes or no right now. And that's not a bad thing. Not saying that I would completely rule it out at some point or, but I think that's just a lot of pressure on myself. I will always tell people that seems like a lot of work right now. Not saying that it's it's still going to be a lot of work when I want to do that, when I get to that space. But in saying that's a lot of work for me right now, just trying to get into the space and understand some of the things that we're talking about at that time. And so I definitely think it relieves early career of the pressure of thinking about the heights that they have to reach versus like the heights that they want to reach. And the heights that they want to reach are more present than the heights that they need to reach, which are like 10 years down the line from now, even if that, and really helps you to just hone in on your experience and your plate and what you're building right now. You don't need to overrepresent yourself.
A
That,
1000% agreed. It, thank you so much because even as I'm learning right now, people management, it's not for everybody. And it's definitely not easy. But to that point too, you can even from, necessarily we don't work for free. So if you're looking to, make the bag, get that check, you can be a high earning individual contributor. There's so many different expert paths. You can be that subject matter expert and get paid very, very well for having that wealth of knowledge, whatever that space or that discipline is. So there's always so many different options. And that's something that I've enjoyed kind of learning in my couple of months here at this company is that, there are so many different routes to take within your career. And so don't, feel like, hey, for me to have made it in human resources, I had to have been an HRM or an HR director, or or any of those people leader tracks. You can be a seasoned professional when it comes to diversity, when it comes to talent acquisition, and when it comes to labor relations, and be that trusted resources that leaders look to get that expertise. I mean, I've seen leaders rely on analysts to make sure, hey, that you're the subject matter expert when it comes to all things data and how to tell the story. Yes, I'm the leader, but I have the gap. How can you partner with me to be able to help tell that story?
mm-hmm. The biggest example that I can think of, even in just if you don't want to be a leader, if you don't want to be a manager per se of what you're thinking about right now, some people that I know that are super highly respected, which people are always highly respected in the HR space, regardless because of their specialty. But I immediately go to people in comp and ben. I'm like, oh, y'all have been here for years. Y'all the OGs.
Yes. It's so funny. I understood that, but it almost feels like benefits can be, I would say it's like number two on the HR culty side, where it's like once you're in benefits, typically that's where you are for the majority
Mm.
of your career. So definitely a lot of veterans that I've seen in both of those spaces.
No, literally that and payroll too, where
Yep.
I've gone to different companies and said like, "Oh yeah, there was a previous person that I worked with, their name is so and so." And they'd be like, "So and so, oh, we used to work together. Oh, I saw them at that conference last month." I'm like, when I'm like, this payroll is small. Oh, benefits is a smaller, we're a tight-knit crew. Yeah. Yeah, I can't even think about an entry level benefits position that I can think about, right? Like where I just think about everybody there is senior. Everybody knows. You may not know everybody in that HR office, but I guarantee you that one benefits or that one payroll person, they gonna know.
Yes, and they know a lot. Funny you mentioned, I want to say the total rewards immersion that I'm going through, it has several layers. And every time you
Yeah.
think you made it through all the layers, there's more layers. So
Mm,
it's a lot that goes on in there. I think one of the most recent trainings that I had was on garnishments. And that is in fact
mm.
within total rewards, which is in benefits. It's more than PTO and company discounts. There is those transactions? How do we make sure that people are paying their child support and their student loans?
Yes. Yes. Literally from, like you said, of the wage garnishments, thinking about PTO, thinking about any type of equity, whether that's going into employee stock programs or looking at all of the other benefits kind of offered underneath that. If someone is on like a paid leave of some sort that's not PTO, that would be treated differently. I'm just like, how do y'all keep all the different benefits that are offered? How do you elect those benefits? How much it costs a company? How much it's costing you out of your paycheck, and how that's garnishing your paycheck too? Talking about 401ks, IRAs. I'm just like, and they keep up with the stuff like it is the back of their hand. What?
Yes, which I appreciate definitely being HRBP. I think I was in the beginning kind of struggling having to wrap my head around being the jack of all trades, master of none space. But
Mm.
to that point, I appreciate when an employee can come to me and I can partner with my benefits people. They are heaven sent.
Man, I remember the first time that I was talking to a senior HR leader who was a mentor for me. And I was telling her at the time, I was like, girl, oh, I'm scared of employee relations. I'm scared of labor relations. I'm scared of entering like that space. And she was like, why? And I said, girl, because I'm going to have to know every single labor law, employment law in the book. That is scary. And what if I get something wrong? She said, you don't do it alone. Like you partner with legal counsel, you partner with general counsel. You guys have these conversations together. You are not just doing everything by yourself in employee relations. You are talking to many different people and collaborating. I said, you just gagged me for real?
And that's what can really seem daunting, especially looking at those HR generalists or more of those, full activity type of HR roles. Is that job descriptions you need to know EEOC, compliance laws for different states, and while that's helpful, and as you continue, in the field and in the space as a practitioner, you'll slowly start to pick up on certain states. Okay, I know that there is pay transparency in California and in New York, but there are different nuances when it comes to background check adjudications in Illinois. But those things come with time. But yes,
Mm,
to your point, you do not have to know all of those. And I don't think anybody does knows all of those. But that's one of the beauties of HR is that you have that community that's going to be able to support you.
exactly. Like I once I figured out, oh, I can really like build on my knowledge without having to know everything like day one. Things opened up. And I think that is a bigger thing that I wish they told more HR early career coming in beyond, hey, we don't expect you to know everything. Okay, great. But I know you expect me to know some things. So, what is it that you need me to do and that I can go ahead and start building on right now? Because yes, I could probably help you out with a lot of things with like a lot of the laws that we learn when we're thinking about just stuff in my MBA class of ADA, FMLA, going back to what you were talking about EEOC, all of that stuff that we typically have to keep track of in many different ways. But like, what laws am I going to primarily be dealing with right now? Like, what are things that I really need to keep up to date with? What are things that I need to keep in the back of my hand based on company priorities or what we tend to see within our workforce? And then when we come past those one offs where I'm learning things new, I feel more adjusted to where I know, oh, okay, I've already been working with, this amount of stuff for a long time. This one off, let me apply some of this knowledge that we've been building on from that time and then kind of move from there. Definitely would make a smoother transition having that communicated, like you said. But yeah, y'all, you don't got to do a lot alone in HR. You're not going to be the only person making decisions on things. In fact, you may have to get them validated by others beforehand or just have someone in the CC, whether it's your manager, especially if you're interacting with another employee. Trust they will put HR on the front lines, but that doesn't mean you're the only one on the line.
Yes, and even to that point, it's amazing what you pick up and how things start to add the longer you stay in the space. I'll never forget in what was that 2023 kind of learning that okay, when it comes to I-9 compliance for new hires, okay, making sure that you verify documentation by the third day of employment. Fast
Hmm.
forward, I go to Boeing and they're like, oh well, by the way, you could also verify it up to a month before the employee actually starts. And I was mind blown. I was like, oh, so I don't have to do an entire orientation of 50 people and have to go through and verify the documents. I can actually work with our I-9 provider and get this streamlined. So you'll always pick up something new along the way. And as you kind of go through different companies and you have different HR mentors in the field, you'll get a little nugget of information. But to that point, it would be nice to kind of know, hey, show me the Carfax. What are the most mission critical things? And I definitely think when it comes to just kind of HR in that early career space to that point, I wish that there was that kind of cliff notes. But one thing I will definitely say is you do find like really great, amazing mentors in the field that will kind of, take that time to kind of give you the background context so that you can kind of start to slim down and know, hey, what are those things that, I need to focus on and how to ask and pull that information, even if it's not readily given to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow, you just enlightened me on that 72-hour I-9 rule.
Yes. The more you know.
Learning new stuff. And especially as in HR, you start to learn new systems when you're in early career too. Just thinking about like when I first started doing background checks and working with like First Advantage, it was like the first vendor that I ever worked with. But thinking about like, even how you do those processes or the differences between Workday and SuccessFactors and maybe Bamboo HR and all of these other, PeopleSoft, things of these natures of just you will at every company, HR is done differently. So you will never, and I mean ever, ever feel like I have fully learned everything because it's just simply not true. And as things continue to change, especially when you are at a global company, to what you said earlier about global talent acquisition, the more laws and regulations come into play, the more you're learning about the differences and how much time people have between getting away from their first job or the previous job and then going into that job where 2 weeks in the US, in other countries, sometimes it takes them like a month or maybe a month and a half notice that they have to give before they head somewhere else. And even when I'm learning some of those things, I'm like, that is so interesting. And as you continue to kind of go through that, or even just, I've worked as, North America being a subsidiary of a parent company before, even just, adjusting to different time zones, also adjusting to not only the subsidiary's needs, but thinking about the parent company and their philosophies and how that's translating down to you and how you have to communicate that as an HR professional, especially when things are changing in different respects. It's quite a journey. Sometimes it gets to be fun at a point where you're like, okay, every day is truly different. No matter the HR field, for sure. Even if it's down to some cyclical things that you might do within your role, there's never a time where there's not anything dynamic happening in HR.
Yes. Oh, yeah. You gave me the biggest flashback, especially how you ran with the global talent acquisition. So even when I was at Boeing with that internship, I focused a lot on process improvement and process maps. And even that within the talent acquisition space, I think everybody would think, okay, reviewing resumes, being able to interview and then offer, there's so much more. And then even when you start to look outside of your bubble and your environment, I got to do process mapping for Asia and for Europe. And then looking at even that, I'm thinking, okay, well, how much can the process be different from the US versus, in Europe? And even within that, there is a whole workers' council. There's certain
Mm-hmm.
approvals that you need from different governing bodies before you can do the most simple of, or what may seem like the most simple of processes. So, yeah, to that point, there's always different layers, and I would even challenge people to even think about that from that perspective. If you're kind of looking at the US lens, even kind of taking a look at what does international HR look like. That's an area that I definitely want to get more versed in because I can speak to US HR. That's what I've had experiences, what I know, but I know, HR doesn't look the same in every part of the world.
Yeah. The cultural competency there is another layer of add on. So even, when you think, okay, I have a pretty good footing in US HR, bet let me step over to global and start, working with our counterparts that are in other countries based on the companies that we're in. You will again get uncomfortable. Get used to it.
Yes.
Wow. I feel like we have literally, like you said earlier, and just now at the point that you're back in arriving in, where you said it feels kind of like back to square one, but almost in a full circle way. I feel like we have touched on so much about HR in our own special experiences, but just in general, even the stuff that we are having to learn throughout our time, whether that is from a personal development and how we calm the crash outs or we deal with everything as we're learning and growing, but also thinking about, our technical skills. We've talked about quite a bit from different places and how we've understood our expertise and experience and how we're growing to the people that we want to be in the HR space. So just to round us out, I would love if you could give us what HR, like what do you want to embody as an HR professional and what should we be looking forward to and in your journey?
Ooh, I love this. Okay. It's so funny you say this. It reminds me of my first internship with Publix, and I remember I was honest. I was like, it's a big company. That was my first internship experience, my kind of introduction to corporate America, so to speak. And I just asked my leader, like, why did you hire me? And she said, one thing that I really loved is that you're very confident, but you're very humble. And from that takeaway, I always told myself that throughout my career in HR, I always want to be remembered as somebody that's kind, that is resilient, and that is resourceful. I think when I look at the course of my career and as I kind of, learn things in this development program, that I want to make people, feel good. And even in those times where it can be difficult to have, not so fun conversations, how do I make sure I keep that human element of human resources, strong for myself? So whatever that may look like, whether I continue to stay in this more business partnering space, if I see myself in early careers or any other, center of excellence, that's definitely one of the things that I want to kind of embody when it comes to the spirit of human resources is that, you can be or have a huge passion, for helping others and enriching lives. And even in, those more difficult parts of human resources when it comes to employee relations, there's a deep and meaningful way to kind of deliver information. So definitely want to be remembered with that. And then I think coming on to the kind of horizon there, I guess like what's next, definitely want to continue just being a resource for early career professionals and really just being able to have that opportunity to kind of let them know, like, if I can do it, so can you. And sometimes you need to just have that person that's able to just have that real and that honest conversation with you. So definitely be on the lookout for some content in the future. Definitely been thinking about it for a lot, but I definitely want to document my experiences and just say the things that need to be said, for the education of everybody.
Period. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on to the show today and really giving all of your input and your insight into early career HR, which is something that we have not had on the show yet. So I look forward to, of course, seeing all of the content. So don't worry, guys. We will drop John's LinkedIn down below so you guys can anticipate all that's coming up. And again, just thank you so much for everything that you're contributing to the HR space and all that you are as an emerging HR professional.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Amaya.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Intentional Intern podcast. We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and a boost of motivation to take on your career journey. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow, leave a review, and share it with your network. Connect with us on LinkedIn and Instagram and let us know your thoughts. Your feedback fuels our next great episode. Until next time, stay intentional, keep growing, and keep shining bright. See you in the next episode.